Welcome to the GOYA Gatherings Podcast, a serene and inspiring space where the worlds of yoga and wellness converge. Every episode is a journey into the heart of yoga, offering you deep insights, uplifting stories, and practical wisdom. Our conversations are designed to inspire your journey and illuminate your path to well-being. Please remember that the views expressed by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of GOYA Gatherings or its hosts.
Welcome to this episode of the GOYA Gatherings Podcast. My name is Mark. I'm part of the leadership team here at GOYA. And today I'm joined by someone some of you might know fairly well from videos in the Academy and posts in the GOYA community. But I'm here with Salla Raine, who I wonder how best to describe you, Salla, but I've written down here a multifaceted wellness practitioner. I know there's much more to you than just that, but you do have multiple disciplines that you practice. And I thought it would be really helpful for the GOYA community today to have you onto the podcast because it's been a while. And I thought that it would be helpful to talk about balancing the many different hats that you wear in the practices that you have, and then also hopefully some ideas that you could share about how other people could manage and balance those multiple different hats as well. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
So could you maybe, before we dive in, just explain a little bit more, if you like, your elevator pitch? What is your elevator pitch about yourself?
Oh, does anyone enjoy that question? No, but let's do it. Great practice. Okay. Hi, my name is Salla Raine. I am a creative person that also enjoys strategy and challenge. So my brain likes to work creatively, but in a structured way. So that means that I often get drawn to problem-solving careers through creative thinking, or elements like design, and also leaning into sort of well-being, why we function like we do as humans and how we interact with anything and everything. So that means my career has spanned over well-being, property development, graphic design, branding, teaching yoga, massage therapy, and then a few other things in there too.
So property development to massage therapy are very opposite ends of a spectrum, one might think from the outside, but I'm assuming that there is a thread that connects all of them, whether that is, you mentioned before about creativity and sort of being an artist. Is that what connects them together, or are there other factors?
Yes and no. Yes, because creativity plays a huge role in the thinking of how to design spaces or how to design a property. It's actually the interest in people that frames why I'm drawn to certain things. Everything always comes back to how does this work with people? So designing homes for people, and massage therapy is listening to what people need that day, designing a sequence, tuning in, responding to what's in front of us, because it's very much a co-creative. I would say I'm very co-creative as well, which is also linking back to like the human interest. So that's the main thread. And one of my friends said to me one time, I've noticed you really need people, Salla. Heard that in all the wrong ways because she didn't set me up at all. She was just watching me and said it. And I was like, I don't need people. And then I thought, I know what she means. Like, yeah, I really am someone that I like working with people, meeting people where they're at, learning about people, why the human experience is like it is. So that's the main thread.
Sometimes when I see people with, I would say like a CV or resume like yourself, who kind of expands this, like you have many different hats that you wear, which is the topic of this podcast today. Are you actively, because sometimes I see that list of things that people do and I think, wow, I only do like 2 things. So are you actively doing all of those things at one time, or are they different moments you've had in your life where you've practiced a certain thing, or your career has been in a certain direction and it's evolved over time, or are they something that you're doing most of them at this week, for example?
I'd like to answer that inclusively, because I'd like to answer it the way you first asked it, which was noticing the difference between you and I.
Mm-hmm.
So I often notice that if I try and apply for a job through an agency, a job site, I do not fit anywhere. Like, I am not a specialist in one thing. So I often myself come into that contrast of life where I'm like, whoa, like this is not what they're asking for, but this is what I do, you know. And so I've rarely ended up in jobs that I've applied for in the traditional way, because it's just not my path, and I've become completely acceptant of that now. But in my 20s, that was a bit of a rough ride, you know, like I was always doing a variety of things at the same time. And then there would be seasons of my life where I would go in and spend like a good couple of years developing a certain skill set to a certain point, or journeying with a certain group of people in a certain career, right? So I would say, yes, I'm often doing at least 5 different sectors of career. But there will be seasons where I spend 2 to 5 years in that. Yoga and massage therapy being the longest standing candidates so far. Like we're into the decade now in that arena. So I think I have found something that I'm actually supposed to be doing. And then the other things I do are really just for great fun and being able to express how I feel is contributing towards something good in the world. Yeah.
So there's no box for you yet on those traditional application forms.
No, and you know, some people who I know who are similar to me would say things like, be the box, just forget half the stuff you do and just fit the box. And then there's this part of myself that goes, ooh, that feels really limiting. You know, I'm being forced into a shape that I don't naturally sit in. So it depends what people need to do in their life to get to where they need to go. We have to make our decisions that are best for us and making sure that it's in line with our values. But for me, that was never a value that felt right, felt like a lie to myself, felt like I was lying to the company, even thinking about applying like that. So I've just been one of these people that I meet people, and there's along the way, there's some exchange of like, I need this and you do that, and vice versa. And then things develop. Or I apply for a role, and then I've been working in that role for, I don't know, and it was on purpose. So maybe I chose like an admin job for that season because I wanted for a minute some work where I'm just ticking boxes off of tasks. We can all agree that is very, very pleasurable to just go tick. Sometimes I'll bring in things like that, and I'll be working in that job for like 3 months. And then, of course, naturally, because that's not all I do, something will happen within the organization, and the director will turn to me and say, like, what do you think about that? I know from your CV that you did this. And I'll come up with a solution. And then, they've decided they don't want to work with that interior designer now. And now I'm the interior designer for the brand. You know, it's also how it goes. And I do think that's a very beautiful and organic way of weaving through life. Seeing, does this work? Yes, great. Let's do it. Let's try. Mm-hmm.
It's also a breakaway from that paradigm of one career for your whole life that is a very sort of more traditional way of thinking about the trajectory of one's working life. And I think with the rise of like gig culture, lots of people doing other things on the side, hopefully in the future, there's more boxes for people to be able to identify or to let people know about. Because it also, if you're not able to put all of yourself or list all of the qualities and the skills that you have in those applications, then it's the company, for like hypothetically, that you're applying for, is missing out on knowing things about you that could potentially help them. So I hope in the future, because I know a lot of people who do many, many different things in a week, in a day, over the course of their lives. And so hopefully there's more options for those boxes, so that we're not,
Yeah. And right now we're obviously just talking about career options. But, I know people just like me who choose on purpose to do a career which is very, very, what do you say the word would be? Focused in a certain sector. And then everything else they do, they could actually do as other jobs if they wanted to, but they choose to keep them as their passions. So things that they're doing musically with people. The aim is not to earn an income from it, but to express freely. And so that it depends how we need to look at it. For me, I seem to just end up putting my passions into careers. That's just how I am. I always think, oh, well, this could be an income stream. That's just how my mind is. But for other people, that doesn't feel right at all. But it's the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, whether you're getting paid for it or not, if you're putting the time and energy, and then it's a path. How do you, I guess the word is balance or manage in a week the many different hats you have to wear? So could you take us through like a typical day maybe in your life of the different hats that you're wearing in that day, and maybe expand a little bit on any rituals, any tips or tricks you have for being able to successfully, if needed, put on the other hat?
Yeah, great question. I think I need to set it up a little bit before I introduce you to the day so people can understand the reason I am like I am. Because so far, someone could go, oh, that's interesting, but that sounds completely chaotic. And like, does she even stay in a job longer than 6 months? Is she one of these people that needs to move and be free? And no, that's not my story, but for some people, that's right for them. So I come from a family of entrepreneurial minds. These people look at opportunities, and it's always, again, working with people. So the interest is people. And like, how does this become a supportive resource for people, but also an energetic flow for me and my family too, that we can then like keep putting back, and it becomes like this infinity loop. So I do come from that type of lineage where there is an element of service there, but the service also needs to work for us so that we can continue giving. So that's where I come from. And that has expressed itself in many different careers within my lineage. But for a lot of the women, it's very much service work. So that is, for me, that's expressed as massage therapy and yoga, or, designing people's homes in a sustainable way that works with the planet and the people. So that sort of thing has expressed for me. But that's the lineage I come from. So naturally, the brains of my lineage are always, how do we keep simplifying the offering so that it's less work, more streamlined, better product for the person experiencing it, better working experience for us, so that basically everybody has their basic needs met. Within that is time management done well. So balance between life and work. So in my 20s, that was terrible, and it wasn't happening. And I was just working myself all the time because I just didn't know how to get there. And I think that's really normal with people who are like me, that you want to become skilled in your craft. And there's a certain point in the journey where you think, okay, now I'm worth it. I feel good about what I'm charging, or now I actually don't feel guilty to take a holiday. Like there's this thing that has to happen along the way, self-acceptance of your own skill set and your own value. And that takes time. So in my 20s, some people like to use the word hot mess. But, skills were accomplished, and now I'm here. So today, I have a rule that I try not to work 5 days a week if I can strategically get my time focused, so I'm producing quality work, and then give myself the time I need to actually restore, which I have learned is actually quite a lot of time, especially in service work like massage therapy, where we're working really closely with the energetics of another. Within that also comes developing good energetic boundaries, good social boundaries, good self-care boundaries. So throughout the week, let's say I work now, or I try to work a 4-day week. Let's be real though, sometimes on a Friday, I have not completed all my tasks. And I'm like, okay, well, I took the Wednesday off or the Wednesday afternoon off. So now I'm going to work Sunday morning. That's fine, right? Sometimes we just have to go with that. That's okay. But the aim is to keep refining. So I hope I've set this up well for people that's the type of brain I have. We look at everything and we keep it simplifying. So if any idea comes up, I'm like, okay, I need to simplify that idea by 50% before I roll it out. And then once it's rolled out after the first few weeks, can I simplify that by 50% more? So it's a really clear offering. It's not a lot of time and it's earning good return. That's the type of person I am. So in the week, I will be doing yoga sector work. So that can be teaching, that can be admin, that can be educational. Then that's on a Monday. Then on a Tuesday, I will do massage therapy and blend that with a little bit of yoga admin and things like that. Wednesday, I try to take that day off for me. So that's when I receive a massage or something else of my choice. Or it's one of those days where I wake up, excuse me, and I think I want to be outside in the sun for 4 hours today. And that's my commitment to myself. And Wednesdays are sometimes also the day a personal project might be something I wish to do. So something creative, something that is either in development to be launched or may never be launched. And that's okay. But that's my baby. That's when I do something for me. And then Thursday, we're back to massage therapy. And we may have some other types of work there. So creative things like design or branding. And then Friday, we are also back to massage therapy and a bit of yoga admin. And then what else could come in on Friday? Anything. So that if I've got a new project where it's like, I've heard about you through this is what you did for this person, that's when I might pick that up. So that could be something I did 5 years ago that I just bring in every now and again if the opportunity comes through, but it's not something I push. So that could, that could be copywriting, that could be something like that. Yeah.
Do you find you have to have very clear boundaries with yourself and others in order to successfully make it through a week with those multiple different roles? Like, I'm wondering, like, say you're in a massage, you have a massage client and they hypothetically know that you also do design. And then, they're sort of asking you about design things whilst they're in the massage, or like a last minute booking for a massage. Someone wants to come in, but you've set aside your Wednesday for yourself. Like, do you find you're very open and flexible to those things as they come in, or you have to have very clear structure around them?
That's such a good question. And I think this is like the most difficult thing of just being human, because it depends who it is and what's happening, right? Like every case is its own case. So, and also it depends how I'm doing. So if I'm maybe a little bit tired, my boundaries aren't going to be as rigid and confident, and I might cave and be like, oh, let's have a coffee about that, let's talk about that together, that either opportunity or that idea or that thing they need, which I can help with. But what I will say is if that ever does happen, And I'm getting a lot better the older. So also for me, it's like an age thing. The older I get, the better I get with that. Let's be real. I mean, I'm so excited for like 60 years old, thinking in my head, I'm going to be so pro at this. But at 35 right now, I'm still a bit like wobbly. So one day. But what will happen with that very quickly is, maybe after that coffee or whatever we've chosen to do, I will then get a real good read on actually if this is a good decision or not. And I can very successfully and very kindly close something down that does not need to be done, actually, or redirect that person to the right practitioner or the right designer for them. So I think maybe what's happening in those moments is actually I'm not getting a clear read on if this could be good, but I need to find out more. That might be what's happening, actually. Yeah. I also do come from people that we never say no if it's not a clear no. We do keep things open. And even if it is a no for now, we might answer like, it's not the right time now, but let's keep this open for the future. We're kind of those people. Unless it's really not the right person for us, then we can successfully shut that down as needed. Because it means we're not the right person for them either.
There's a lot of magic to saying, let me think about it, or I'll get back to you about that. And instead of having to make a cold decision in that moment, like this, it gives you a lot more. I found for myself, it gives me a lot more freedom in taking the time that I need to really mull it over. It's because I also come from a family of people who rarely say no. It always is a maybe, or let's see, or I'll look into it. And I'm pretty appreciative of that. It does seem to help. I wondered if you could maybe, because it sounds like time management is critical, obviously, like being, so are you very, have a hard line on time in your day? Like you've got like a clock going and or is it more because we didn't really share this, but from what I know about you, you're a very intuitive person.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering how much of how you're forming your day is based on intuition versus like a clear, immovable structure, such as time.
Yeah, right. Or our perceived sense of time. Yes, that is
exactly.
Yes. I would say the answer is both, and that's very necessary for me. So I've ended up in the types of career where to some degree I do get a say on some of how I spend my time. And that is really important for me. And then I also enjoy having commitments at the same time, just not all the time. So, I have some very, very what we would say in the world, very successful business people as friends. And one thing they say often is, my time is not my own. I'm making the money. I've got all the great things. My health is great, but my time is not my own. And that's what I crave. And I think there's something in that about, we know very early on actually who we are. And if we're someone that needs a career where we completely get to choose our own time, or like me, where it's actually very helpful to have clients book in at a certain time, or have career opportunities where I have to show up at this time. It helps me to have a little bit of routine as well as a little bit of freedom. I'm that person. Happy medium.
No, I agree. Because I mostly manage my own time, but I really enjoy having moments like this in my day where I have a scheduled thing and I can work around the time before that and then after. Like it does help give a bit of structure. I know a lot of people when they, especially maybe not so much for yoga teachers, because you're a little bit more, if you're working at a studio, I guess you're more sort of, your time is dictated by a studio schedule. But if you are a person who's offering classes out of the home or a wellness practitioner and you're in charge of your schedule, or admin things and things like that, it's a skill to learn for sure. Learning how to find the balance, I guess.
Yes. And like I said, this is actually a much healthier way for me to work, because in my 20s, I was all about the work. And I would work till 4 a.m. and then, wake up at 10 and feel so terrible and then be like, let's go, It was completely wild. So I need the time to go, I'm going to choose not to do that right now. Because I can go very gung-ho on things. Yes, so this is much better for me, for my well-being.
You talked about Wednesdays, about being the day that you receive massage, or there's sort of time that's set aside for you to work on your own creative personal projects. Is that one of the ways that you avoid burnout? Because I would imagine that is people who balance multiple roles, especially from the care perspective, or the working with people's perspective. I've heard that burnout is something that is quite fairly common. So besides the Wednesdays, if that is how you sort of manage burnout, are there other things that you do to avoid burning out completely, besides just experience of burning out?
Yeah, this is such a great question. And it obviously depends where that person is in the season of their life and what's happening for them, because sometimes burnout can come from other things happening in personal relationships within somebody's life that takes a toll on their career as a result. And that's actually what happened to me when it happened to me in my late 20s. So it wasn't necessarily I was overworking, but this incident with some loved ones had such an emotional impact on me that I couldn't continue in the same way I was working, and I was trying so hard to keep that going. So it depends how the person is wired. I'm a very emotional being, which works wonderfully for any intuitive work. But to answer your question, the Wednesdays are quite a recent addition. Maybe that came in 2023. I'm part Swedish, and in Sweden sometimes we call Wednesdays Little Saturday. And it's not a regular thing that you would take like every Wednesday off, but the idea is that you take the Wednesday as like a treat for something. So that could be going out for dinner. It could be doing, a bit less work that day if you can, or doing something for you. And I've just taken it to the extreme. What is possible with this day? How can we restructure everything? My friends say I'm like that psychologist detective, sort of like I will look for the loopholes and be like, what happens if we go through here? And then, that didn't work. Okay, let's turn around. As long as it's just me that's getting the effect of trying these things out, it's totally fine. But the biggest thing for me that helps me really balance very quickly is on a weekend, if that's the designated time off, or on the little Saturday, which is the Wednesday, to actually take like a half-day trip somewhere, like drive an hour away from where I live to a completely different landscape, which is doable for where I live because I live an hour away from a very beautiful mountain range. So that landscape is totally different. The air is different. The nature is different. Birds sound different. And that quick refreshment is incredible for realigning everything and putting everything in perspective again. It's not the end of the world. Whatever is happening, it's happening, and let's just keep going. But right now we're here in the mountains, and wow, so that helps for me instantly. I will say that the one thing that gets me very, very tired very quickly, and I have to watch this one, is if I'm doing normal life, I have my career, and I'm learning something new, bringing in of like education or developing a new skill set more intensely, that can be very tiring for me. So that I really have to watch. If I go back to education, I have to almost treat that like a bit of a career and think, okay, we actually need more time.
It's interesting. Do you think that has the educational component always been there for you, and it's something you identified later in life, or have you known that from a young age, that sort of the taxing nature of learning something?
For me, I know I'm someone that really absorbs any experience I'm in. So I'm like a bit of a seeker. If I'm learning something, I want to know everything. You know, if I'm in a conversation with somebody and they're saying a story, I'll be that person like, hang on, go back 5 steps. Sorry, what happened there? Like, tell me about that bit. That sounds interesting. So I'm very absorbed in whatever I do, which I love because it means I feel like I'm really living, right? I'm really experiencing everything. But at the same time, that absorption into the full experience is energy. And that's the bit for me that can drain very quickly. So I notice little things like I need more sleep. If I'm back in education, I need more sleep. You know, Salla, don't be trying to close any deals with new clients or trying to do some big pitch of some project. That is not the time. So when I'm in education, I treat it as a very different thing from a well-being perspective first, and then everything else balances out.
Someone posted in the GOYA members group, I think it was Lauren, about burnout last week.
Yeah.
And I thought about it, and I realized that it just sneaks up on me so often that I think I figured out the factors that contribute to it. And then it turns out that there's something, like you were saying, like it's not always the same thing, or, you know, it depends on what you're doing or where you are in your life at that time. So is it just kind of like the school of hard knocks that you've learned this from?
Yeah. And like I said, I'm a little bit of like, you know, I'm not scared to go into deep, intense places. This is very much part of my personality. Like I am that person. If somebody says, okay, a great idea, and I'll go and develop that whole project, I'll just be like, let's do it. Right. Like I just have no fear in certain ways. And then in other ways, huge fears, which makes no sense. But the thing that really changed my whole understanding of that bit, so I didn't have to keep going into these areas of like, oh, ouch, okay, was astrology. Oh my gosh, when I learned about my own birth chart, and obviously I respect everybody's what they choose to invest in discovering for themselves. But honestly, I've done human design, I've done other things. For me, it was the astrology that made so much sense around why I go so intensely into things, why I prefer this type of career model. So I'm a Venus Sagittarius, which basically means I am that person that looks for freedom and beauty in all things. And I want to make things like the loveliest they can be. But then I have a lot of Capricorn energy in my chart, huge amounts, which is that like work hard, grind, keep going, like get it over the line. And then at the same time, a lot of Scorpio, which is that depth into the where have we not looked yet? Because there's a solution somewhere and I will find it, you know? So I understand it helped me go, right, that's so interesting. And at the same time, with astrology, we can also learn where there is imbalance. So like the chart suggests you tend to overwork when you're younger. Oh yeah, I did that. The chart suggests you're someone that needs to follow your own path. Yeah, that's pretty important. Otherwise it feels like a lie. If I go back to what I said at the beginning about applying for these jobs that are very specialist, it's like lying. I could do that, but that feels like a real lie to myself. And then I'm not going to show up as myself, right? So for me, that answered a lot of questions and put a lot of hovering question marks to rest, where I thought, fine, cool, okay. What can life be now if I actually accept all of that? That's fun. Yeah. So for me, that helped me a lot. But I will say, if someone, astrology can be a crutch if we allow it to be. We read about it, we see what makes sense, and then we go, okay, great, but also I have free will and sort of a destined path that I can somewhat choose as well.
So it's all kind of svadhyaya, like the self-study and taking what makes sense of what you discover and applying it in a meaningful way.
100%.
Okay. Okay. That totally makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. It's also interesting that you're describing the astrology and you're these multiple different, like there's a lot of different kind of astrological energies. And then also you're a person who has these many different things that you do. So it does just that kind of helps to shed a little light.
Yeah. I find that very interesting, but I did get a bit obsessed with it for a while because that's my like Scorpio brain. It's like, what else is here?
Do you think that, because you've said it a few times now, and I wonder how common it is that in your 20s, this kind of desire or this need, perceived need or real need to work a lot and to sort of do all of the things. I also felt that way, especially in my 20s, and know many people who have described the same. Do you think that to some degree that might just be a natural thing that people sort of like how Ayurveda looks at a person's life and says your highest energy moments are, 20s, 30s, and then in your like things start to change and shift. Not that those are always true for everybody, but that there's kind of a, like sometimes I reflect back on my 20s and I think, why did you work so much then? But I didn't feel like it was the wrong thing to do at that time in life. Do you think that there's a natural kind of progression that people might sort of generally go through?
Yeah. I mean, I've noticed that too. The 20s is like, there is such investment energy to be spent. And we surround ourselves with people who are similar to us because they keep our drive going and we get to bounce these things off them. But then at the same time, we'll have friends that do things completely differently in that bracket of time. So for example, I have friends that began their families in their 20s. Same volume of energy went into that, right? And this knowing that was the right way to expend that energy. But for me, it was about trying to find out what was possible in terms of time spent in a career. Yeah. Like that was a very big obsession, actually. Like, okay, so if anything is possible, because that's my mindset. Sometimes that is a big mindset to have. But if anything is possible, what can my life be if I do this? And that was the right way for me to go. And it was fun. I had so much fun. Like, yeah, sometimes I would have to take really rubbish jobs where I would work in basically a cupboard with no windows, right? And my partner at the time would be like, that's illegal. I'd be like, I don't care. It's just for now. And then I'm going to get on to my next thing, Like, we did what we needed to do. But it was fun.
It's so I just have this image of you sort of like Harry Potter in a cupboard working away on a computer, but very happy.
I did it twice.
Oh dear.
And on the second one, my partner was like, I'm going to go in and tell these people, because it was a well-being center. You cannot put your employees in a cupboard if you're running away. I was like, it's fine. Like, I'm really not here for long.
I love that's too funny. That's too funny. What advice would you give to your, because why are we having this conversation? Because we know that in the Goya community, there's lots of people probably who do multiple different things. They're yoga teachers, they might be parents, they might have other careers outside of yoga, they might be wellness practitioners who also do many different things. So we're likely a community of people who do potentially more than one thing. What advice would you give to your younger self about maybe 3 tips for finding balance and happiness amidst doing all the things that you love to do?
First tip still is, I still feel like I'm speaking to her all the time. Trust your own intuition that your own path is your own path. It's so easy to feel like you're supposed to fit a box, or this person's doing that. That's kind of close to what I think I want to do. I'm going to follow that for a while. That's fine for a while. Like, your own path will be laid out. The right people will come forward to teach you the lessons, give you the gifts, help you with support. Like, it does happen. So that bit, that's very important, I feel. But I'm talking from someone who is an intuitive, and that is one of the main reasons people come for massage therapy, is for that part. So that's me talking from that place. Second tip to do with balance: yoga more, party less.
Shocker.
Yeah, like less tequila shots, more shavasana. Yeah. For real though, that bit. And I do think we are moving into a time now where that's actually, people are actually choosing that. I'm so excited to see that. Escapism in the best way, back into the body, instead of in the nightclub.
Totally.
Yeah, right. But then again, conscious nightclubbing is becoming a thing too. So love that. Yeah, so a bit more bravery to actually be with than escape into something that is, basically blocking what's really going on. The third one, so that's really, I would say that was more sort of mental, emotional health related, that second one. Third one, believe in yourself. Yeah, I undervalued myself for so long. Price-wise, whoa, that's such a massive thing, especially in careers like yoga, because it's a infinite loop that we're tuning into, right? Like, we're giving, then we're receiving, we're giving, we're receiving. Like, trying to value yourself at a price point that's actually going to let you live a decent life, that's brave.
Like, tip number 3 is so important to spend some time reflecting on if you haven't, because it is very easy, in my experience, just to sort of go along with the wave and not realize that actually there is there's more possibilities out there. There's more revenue out there if that is important to you, and to many yoga teachers that is it seems to be the difficulty getting started is like, how do I know? How do I find out? How long till I am worth this much in what I'm offering? But like, basically all the 3 tips you gave involve some element of mindfulness, right?
Yeah,
and some reflection.
Yes, and really actually arriving with yourself and your own inherent value as a human. I wish that we didn't have to rely on this idea of finance in the way we do, right? But if we really think about it, and this is my big old brain going there again, why do we have to pay to be alive? This is the big question. But we do. And so we do have to come to a small compromise with that. And we have to decide, okay, so how do we make this work for us? And like I said, I know so many practitioners, especially in things like Reiki, who say, I just don't feel right charging, just doesn't feel right. And they are blessed with finance in other streams of their life because that's the alignment. And that's fine. And then for some people like me, I just get very tired if I don't charge enough money.
Well, it comes back to tip 1, which is like, your path is your path and it's not the path of somebody else. So, like, because we're all living on through those different paths, that just because someone has the ability to not have to charge so much or to choose not to charge doesn't mean that we're in the same situation by any means, even if we're practicing the same thing. So they're so connected, those 3.
They are.
I think.
Yeah. And I do like that people are really more open about talking about that now, because finance is an energy stream. It's a bit of a funny model, how we have to work with it in the world, but it exists. So I like that people are more open now to talking about this and actually how it interacts with us energetically, how we feel, as long as we are moving from our true soul path with it, from a great place of connection. I love that we can have the conversations about it now.
Well, and also the conversations are so helpful, especially for newer teachers too, because because I mean, in my experience, I had to do some of the things for free or to take a lower rate than I would normally take in order to then get further opportunities because they were aligned with where I wanted to be or what I wanted to do. So there's a lot of negotiation that happened with myself as to not just the monetary value of an opportunity, but also where I could see it potentially taking me, whether it panned out or not. And nobody really spoke about that at the time. It was like, this is what it is. This is, this is this, but I could see much more than just that amount of money in that particular place. And I could see the possibilities. And so I think the more that, as people who have been through the yoga and wellness industry for many years, the more that we can openly talk about our experiences, especially from the monetary perspective, then hopefully the more insight it gives newer people who are just joining us to know that maybe what they're experiencing is not unusual.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There is definitely a time where we do a lot of things out of love or interest, like you said, because you can see something there that really feels great, whether it's the people you're about to work with, finance or other, doesn't matter. But yes, there is definitely a sort of time where we just have to give ourselves and go, okay, I trust this is going to go somewhere. And then sometimes it really doesn't. But then we get very good at noticing those opportunities again when they come up, like, no, thanks. Thanks, but no thanks.
Before we wrap up, because I am aware of time, I just wanted to ask you one more thing that doesn't really tie in with the last question, but something that I'd love to get your insight on, which is when you are moving between the multiple different roles in the day, are you having to make a conscious energetic shift within yourself? Or does it just flow naturally for you between those different things and the energy sort of is mixed? Or is it a hard line that you're having to energetically create?
Yeah, so two things with that. There is like an energetic thing that happens where I go, right, now I'm going to expand out, now I'm going to come in. That has to happen. That's the only like real shift. I used to change my outfits to help with like bringing forward the different qualities that job does. I think I've gotten a bit lazy with that now. But that used to help me a lot before. But the last thing on that is that I am someone that I really love life. I really love what I do. So it's not actually about the shift from one thing to another. It's about the close of one thing before the opening of another. And I always find myself going into a place of like, oh God, I'm so lucky to do this. I have that. And so I think that's like the natural full stop that happens. And then I'm open to the next thing.
So it's gratitude.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It really is. It really is. But I'm also someone, I have done a lot of really rubbish jobs where I was like, I hate this, right? So it's taken a long time to get here. And obviously I'm on my own path. So I really have to reinstate that for everybody. Moving between teaching yoga, which is quite expansive energetically for me, and massage therapy and intuitive work, which is very, very quiet, where I bring my energy right in. Those two are the biggest shifts.
Interesting. So helpful to hear that.
That's probably very relatable, I think, that bit.
Yeah, I think understanding the energy shifts between just the different roles in our life, right? Like maybe you teach from home and then you have to deal with your kids or your pet or your partner after that, and there's a shift that happens. And I think it's interesting to hear from other people about how they manage those transitions in their day, especially in this context of someone who's offering multiple different services in a day as well. I think it really drives it home a little bit more. So thank you.
No, thank you for this chat.
Well, and that really wraps us up. So Thank you. Thanks for taking the time to sit down again and be on the podcast as a guest, because you've hosted before, and because you are a big feature in the GOYA Academy. There's lots of great workshops, classes, and practices with you. So I think it's always kind of a little bit of a gift when we can learn a bit more about the people we are practicing with. So thank you for being open and vulnerable, and for taking the time to share a little bit about you and your life, because that's a gift to give others. So thank you.
Oh, it was super fun.